This is a Capri Sun because I had a pizza Lunchable. Because it feeds my inner child sometimes, okay? And I love that about me. Also, you know, there's so many things going on in the world that I feel like in some ways it's funny, like, what do they call it? Choice paralysis. Like when you have so many choices of so many things that you could do or say or make a video about or a TikTok or that you could go out and do, that you, like, it's a psychological thing that happens when you have too many choices. Oftentimes you freeze up because then it's like, which direction do I go? Well, if I have all these options and they're all going to be good, then what do I choose? Which is, it's so interesting. Like, I've been thinking about the things that are playing out in the world, right? So something that I'm still torn about, like, my DM, he's funny. Like he tried, I don't want to say like he tried so hard like that he didn't do it. Like he put so much effort into becoming more politically aware and more aware of like the economy and world affairs over our separation. Like I found it delightful. I really did, especially cuz I put down my political mantles during separation because it was like one, there was some things that happened when I got involved with campaigning and some other stuff and some, like, I brought in some karmics. I wasn't like, I didn't know that term at that time, but there's still at least one of them that I know is like that her name is like etched into his mind because I spent so much time just venting righteous indignation about the things that she did, but I still kept doing it, you know what I mean? So like we can recognize our own patterns within learning to accept and love our twin flames for theirs. You know what I mean? But I put it down, right? Hmm. I wanted to explore more spiritual stuff. I wanted to find my inner peace because like politics can be fun in a very like intellectual, sapiosexual way, but it can also pull you into this fear space because that's largely what it is. Like think about it. Look at any amount, like anything and everything involved with any kind of politics is fear based, right? Now, that hasn't always been true and it will not always remain true. I'm actually excited for what the kinds of downloads that I've been getting because I remember seeing that all this stuff would happen. My DM still, there's a song that I was inspired to create with his help, but it was my inspiration from a dream that I had. And like that was one of the first like predictions of things coming. But him and others thought that it was like immediate. And like I wondered, but I knew that it could like there's various things that could have been miscalculated and various different changes and things like that, but I knew that it was going to be there eventually. I seem to have that ability. Like, I can't always tell you exactly when the timing will be that something will happen. I'm not sure I want that superpower. I kind of enjoy that the timing is like, that there's a thing that is not necessary. I could not when. I could tell you if something will happen. And I love that. Now, there are plenty of things that I can tell you a when, or like when other factors come in that happens. But either way, like, part of this, I think, is especially Mars in Capricorn. Like, so Capricorn rules the 10th house with Saturn, which is all about government and career and office and economy. And it's funny, it's very fatherly things. Even though, oddly enough, in astrology, the father is not the total opposite of the mother. Like, because the fourth house with Cancer and the moon is always the mother, but sometimes it varies. Sometimes it's the 10th house that is considered the father, and sometimes it's the ninth house that's considered the father, and then there can be other aspects that have to do with Mars, and it's complicated. Fatherhood is complicated too. It is, and look at the way that we treat it in the world. But with Mars and Capricorn, it makes sense to me that like I'm seeing the whole world talking a lot more about politics, about things happening because of politics, because we've like called in all this energy of like dismantling the system, ending the colonization systems, updating the school systems, like fixing welfare and like fixing taxation and getting corruption out and like cancel culture and like look at all these energies that we have come together collectively and like called in, and it's right where we're like right in one of the, I mean, we've been doing this for decades, but like look at the culmination of energies happening right now while we're in the middle of these aspects going on in the sky that make total sense, you know what I mean? And Mars and Capricorn definitely wants to talk about politics. Mars in Capricorn has an opinion about most everything. And you know what's funny? It's both a shadow and a light of the Capricorn energy. There's shadow and light of all signs, of all energies, and there's evolved and unevolved energy. You know what I mean? Like Mars and Capricorn, unevolved, would have an opinion about everything, no matter what. It's an energy of like always needing to be right. But in its evolved energy, it's more like there's not a need to have an opinion on everything, but it's also acceptable to recognize when you know that you're right and not need to explain yourself and not need to prove things to people. But because it's Mars, and Mars is, you know, connected to Aries in the first house, which is ego and war and you know, and all these things. It's very like, how do you put it? Like on one side, it's like fighty energy, as in like that reactivity, like that base survival, like must stay safe, must do this, must do that. And on another level, it's like low vibe energy of like must keep power, must have power, must amass power, like kind of, you know, not kind of like a very immature sort of thing. And then another energy of it is kind of this like, it's like accepting power, like that there is power in there. And you know what's funny is like accepting that there are dynamics to power, that everyone has power, that everyone is powerless in certain ways and powerful in other ways, and that there's there's evolved energies and unevolved energies and light and shadow and things like that in all of it. Like those people that run from power, they're often, it's funny, power is often thrust upon them, right? Power that they didn't want to have is often thrust upon them. And people who want power often do so because they feel powerless, right? And then at the same time, it's like, I mean, look at my own situation, right? Big old piratey nonsense, both sides of the family, not good stuff. Me and my oldest ended up homeless. And I've been separate from my youngest for going on 6 months now while he's with his dad. And in pirate territory too. So like at any point in time, like I could have gotten into a wrestling match over power, like, and there was none of that. But it's because I learned that I don't need power. I've never really been much of a power taker. Actually, it's something that I realized that I learned among being around horses. Like I don't know, I said to somebody a few weeks ago, like, a lot of times I'll work a job or I'll be in some situation, and inevitably, and it's usually a woman, it's usually, she's like much more masculine than me, which kind of makes me laugh, but they will be, they will become like intimidated of me, and I'm like going, I am such a mouse. Like, I'm kind, I'm like, and I'm not fake about it, I'm just kind. Like, yeah, I have my opinions and I have my cattiness that could be there, but I openly choose to be in a space of gratitude most of the time. And like the last thing on my mind in most cases is trying to take power from anybody or like trying to fuck up their shit. But I do definitely, as a type 8 Enneagram, like if I see somebody doing something unjust, I will be brave enough to say something, at least most of the time. I give myself the 80-20 rule. I'm human. There's sometimes I might not say something either because I'm not perfect, but most of the time I do. I push myself to be the one to say something, right? And but in order to be here right now, talking with you, sharing photos, having at least a good transitional space for my oldest son and like talking with multiple people about like work trade deals for apartments and stables and farms and things like that, and still like envisioning what comes after that and after that and after that and after that. Like, in order to do that, I had to be in a space actually where this is going to be a funny Cabot trail, where what I have been learning working with horses and horse people lines up with what, like, one of my shadows was that I did not want to feel like I was taking power from anybody. Like, I didn't want to feel like I was taking from anyone. I didn't want to feel like I was scary or intimidating or I don't know. Like, I mean, again, just like I didn't want to feel like I was taking power, right? But that was also in a space of like being like growing up being conditioned to be powerless, to yield whenever anyone pushes in any which way, and to not practice good self-care and to not have good boundaries. And what's funny is like a friend of mine who's part of a spiritual community that I'm in, like, she's worked around horses most of her life, and she said that, working around horses is a great way to learn about boundaries. And I already believed her, but I didn't genuinely know what she meant until I started actually getting to work hands on, like doing a PM routine and different things like that. And like, horses will test the fuck out of you. And a lot of people get frustrated with it. I love it though because I'm like, oh, this is like energetically learning about my own boundaries. And then there's an opportunity coming up where I'm probably going to work at a pampered pets sort of doggy daycare place. And what they need is a person in the yard to manage the dogs, make sure nobody fights and everybody's happy and things like that. And again, what is that about? That's about boundaries, right? And it made me realize, though, especially with the horses, because like I feel fully confident about working with dogs. I've grown up with dogs. I love dogs. Dogs are great energy, and like I know, like the funny thing in my mind, what I'm thinking of is like the difference between an animal that at most might come up to your hips, or well, I'm 5'7", so maybe just below my boobs, but like that at most, that's the biggest that you're likely to deal with. And then comparison to like some of the horses that I've worked with have been draft mixes that like one of their feet was like equivalent to three of mine, you know what I mean, or four of mine. And others like were so huge and so tall, and like one even got away from me, and it was like a 3-second shot. He spooked, and like he was huge. And like learning, like, horses will test you so much. And it's so funny because I feel like I've actually been more prepared for it because of my experiences with the pirates in the former chapters of my life, right? But like they will test you in so many ways. When you're walking them, they'll lean on you. Some will try to walk just faster than you, just a little bit faster than you, not so much faster than you that you're obviously going to stop them, but just fast enough that you're walking really fast, and I try to walk a little bit faster because horses have 4 legs and they're taller than me, so I recognize it because I do it with some dogs too. A big dog needs you to take some bigger steps with it, right? So, but some of these horses, no, they will go just a little bit faster than you, no matter how fast you walk. They'll go just a little faster than you. And I would have thought give to them, but no, no, you're supposed to show them to pay attention to you, to slow down. And others will go far too slow, like that on purpose. They don't want to go fast. Others will like try to like mouth on you. Others might rear at you. Others might just have like a persnickety attitude. Others might try to like stop and eat things or check other things out or rile up other horses. Like others will like there's one that will take his halter and like drag it around in the mud and leave it somewhere, so you either have to go get a different one or you got to go fish his out in order to get it out. Others will run out of gates or installs, and like some of this is like their anxiety, but they really, like, I've been looking more into like how horses are as far as we know in like natural settings, and they do. They're constantly testing each other, and that's something that I also learned from some of the other stable hands. Like, horses amongst each other are constantly testing each other, seeing where is the boundary, and can I get in higher in the pecking order, the hierarchy, can I, or am I down here? And like, they are constantly doing that with each other. And like, I love being able to learn that stuff about me too, because especially like, I mean, horses do communicate verbally in many ways, obviously not the same as we do, but they do. But a lot of this is like energetic communications, and like nonverbal cues and stuff like that. And even the people of the horse world, like, they get into that sort of thing. It's like really like studying what are the many different ways a horse's eyes can look, or their nostrils, or their lips, or or different sorts of nonverbal body language. You know what I mean? Like they really dive into it, and I love that. You know what I mean? But like in order to work with horses, something that I've realized is like I have to. Oh, what how did I put it? Like I have to be the one who confidently has power. It reminds me a lot of when my DM and I got into the kink world and we started learning about like power exchange and stuff like that, which obviously already existed in our lives and in our relationship, but it wasn't something we consciously were aware of or playing with, which is why I looked at that and was like, yeah, that's so us, like Dom sub, yeah, duh. Um, and if you can't tell, I'm Dom. In any case, like one of the things that we had challenges with though is that like it's funny. He is year of the horse, and it was clear to me in like past patterns of relationships that he'd been in that he did like someone to control him, but it wasn't like that. There's evolved and unevolved energies in that, just like there are in everything else, right? And I had a hard time with that. Like that was something that took me a while to work on, and it's what helped me realize like I had codependent energies and attachment traumas and things like that. Like not just realize it because I knew about it before because we went into couples counseling and individual counseling, but like to really feel what it was, right? Now working around these horses, I'm looking at that and I'm realizing like there has been a place within me that's been very like I want to say Queen of Cups. Like looking in my cup and like really liking what's there, going with my Pisces moon, mixing it with my Sag rising, and like daydreaming about all the things that I want and all the things I want to do and all the stuff that we wanted to try that like and it's like very like I mean it's pleasant but it's not a lot of action. You know what I mean? Like it's really deep. However, what good is depth if there's no one there to explore it? You know? And so many different things. See? And see, I can easily go to that energy. What the other side of that, though, is like in order to have gotten through everything we've gotten through, I was just thinking about it. It's funny, like the way it's worked out, like no one person that I've talked to has gotten any of the entire story from me. I mean, if those of you, if there's anybody on my channel who's like watched all of my videos and you know the whole story, I would just love for you to comment because that would be great. Like I know most people they don't have the time or the consciousness capacity to like have the whole thing. And I you know what's funny is I love observing what part of the story went to them or what part of the story stuck with them because a lot of times I might like offer up the whole story for someone and only a piece of what we talked about stuck with them, you know, and it's like, okay, it's interesting reflection or interesting way that like spirit used some part of my story or our story to help that person with that piece. Like, oh, okay. And it's really helped me work on my ego end of like needing to be able to tell a whole story. Like I don't even have to at this point. It's not something that other than on my channels that I like go up and tell people about anymore. But if they ask, like I'll tell them about things, and now I'm in quite a comfortable place of just like talking about like a blurb of it. But it's interesting to look at all that we've gone through, right? Like being on the res and like choosing to walk through the snow. Like I could have chosen to have sat there and complained and like, oh, it's too cold and this and this and that, but I wanted to go get groceries for me and my boy, and I wanted him to have his chocolate milk, and I wanted to check on job options. I wanted, you know what I mean? Like, I wanted to push myself to do it, and I did. And you know what? Like, there's so many different times and stuff like that happened. Like when the Explorer stopped running and we were on Casino Road, like my choice was I could sit there and be like, oh well, now I don't have a car. I can't do this. I can't do that. No, like instead it was like, hey, can I borrow that car? And somebody had something there. And then like when we had to leave that place, like I'm still grateful for the good energy that happened in the beginning, but it turned very low vibe very quickly. And when we had to leave, like or not had to leave. We chose to leave because I even told my oldest son in that situation, like, look, I could have chosen to have kept us there and we could have played the codependent game, but it would have continued to have gotten worse. Like, I've been through it enough. That's what we're leaving. I recognize that this is the point in time to get out of there before it gets bad. And like, we could have easily said, we don't have shelter, we don't have a place for Squeak, we don't have this and that, we have to stay until we get better stuff. No, I said, get your stuff. We don't have to like rush out of here, but we're going to get all our stuff. We're just going to immediately leave this space. And whether we're camping out in that cold ass car with all the crazy people out there or not, like, that's where we're going to go. And, it's better to do that than this, right? And Spirit worked it out. Spirit got us help, got us some friends and community that reached out to us. And then, like, again, when that stuff started running low, like, I was doing everything to try to find places to get us into. I went and did applications and interviews and talked to people and spent like a lot of time doing that while also trying to DoorDash and trying to like catch up on my the places I need to grow because of my ADHD and my own mindset about things and just like on and on and on. Like when it was out of that, like I remember people asking me like, "What are you guys gonna do?" And I'm like, "Well, I guess we're gonna sleep in the car," And like then a friend reached out and helped put a new starter in it so that we could have heat and we could get some more places and then more steps came from there. Like but in order to have gotten through most of that, I had to accept my own power, like my own. I had to accept that, like, in order to get to here and in order to go to the next spaces, that I do know things and I can manifest things. And, like, it's funny. It's I keep wanting to go to like a self-lovey place, so maybe that's appropriate. It is Venus and Capricorn too, and that's like totally. It's like healthy self-love, ooh la la kind of thing. And it's like I needed to recognize that there, like, even if there was nobody in the old communities that I was a part of, that part of what Spirit showed me on my trip and other things is that I can make new connections, that I am worthy of assistance and support and people reaching out to people that they know and helping me with different things, and that I don't need to beg for it. I don't need to feel ashamed about nothing, like that just is. That I'm divinely protected, that I'm divinely chosen, that I can and that the words that I speak matter. That I was to say somehow they help people, but I know much of the somehow. It's like old depreciative space me, right? And that's a lot of like what we're seeing going on in the rest of the world, like the Ukraine stuff, Russia, the Freedom Convoy, the mask stuff, the Kobe stuff, like all that stuff. It's in the hero villain victim paradigm, and it's in that like it's in that space of like all of this is being done because somebody fears like losing power or wants to have more so they feel like they're good for a certain future moment or like they want to challenge a situation to test it to see if they can take more or do more or things like that. And then that brings me back into thinking about the politics stuff and it's like I mean I definitely don't want to go back and be like full on politics stuff because I'm not in a fear space about things, but that's where I find myself at odds because it's definitely a good time to speak about the 3D wars going on, especially with the 5D wars going on. Like, this is all about our evolution. But what I want to talk about is like no war is good. All of them are unjustified. They really are. All of them. But what is it? It's like the myth that I read the other day where the ocean and the earth were deities that fought, and in their destruction they created more land and more animals and more trees and more just all sorts of things. And like they eventually got the sun to be their judge of like who could hold power and who had to give it up, and the sun was like, actually, y'all both did what I wanted in the first place and made this an actual habitable planet and stuff. And so I like that, and I will give you domain over this and you domain over that, and you all play nice from here on out, knowing that they were probably going to continue to fight, right? And it's kind of like that, like we go through these cycles, and it's like where we often get into calling in things like economic depressions is because we get pulled into all of it too. We co-manifest it, right? But we're humans, so we also always co manifest like beautiful things too. And they often go along together with the not so beautiful things. Like that's part of what it is to be human. And there are many things ahead that one are very predictable and two that are like things that are intuitions that I know that I'm getting in the same way that I got intuitions that the now time would happen. Um, that I wouldn't mind talking about, but I don't know. It's one of those Mars and Capricorn meets Venus and Capricorn because it's one of those like, do I choose self love, which is pretty much not talking about it because I don't want to go down to those vibes, right? Um, and also like there is a fair amount of stuff like coming in, some of which I've talked about in other videos that like yeah, it would be good if you don't already know to learn how to grow your own food and how to live with much less convenience than what you've been used to have living with so far. Like toilet paper shortages aren't the worst thing that you can experience when you're used to going through various different economic stuff. But I don't want to get on that wavelength either, like, or rather, maybe what I want to say is that I want to manifest people in who understand me and understand that, like, I am totally not in a space of, like, saying that there aren't awful things in the world happening, but I am not one of those leaders of that side of it. Like, I suppose I'm more a part of the team to rejuvenate you and to remind you how important your consciousness is, like, if you're afraid for anybody on any side or you're angry and you're pushing for any one side or anything like that, you're co-manifesting that. Whereas if you are imagining the benevolent outcomes for everybody, you're helping to co-manifest that, and that's like the evolved lesson that we as humans are learning. Okay, now the funny thing is like this is that Pluto Neptune Mars Venus dance going on, and I can tell that there are many things growing. In fact, what's funny is like I know that I started putting out the thing like I'm gonna manifest $1 million, preferably this year, and maybe more than that. Like I was talking with my Joey about more than that. Like, wouldn't it be great to be able to have an account and be like, here you go, Joey. Here's $1 million. Tell your dad he can get you whatever you want. you know, and the same thing with my aim. Be like, here, son. Here's just $1 million for you. Would you like to go to an actual university? Like, I'm not knocking community college, but we could skip that bit, and you can get into the next. You can get something really nice that you want to go to right now. And then have my own $1 million. Be like, here's our 100-acre woods, and here's everything else that we want to be set up. We're good. Like, and what's funny is so Spirit's been playing a game with me for the last couple of years. Here's a funny tidbit. I know my DM when he watches this is gonna laugh. So there's a main street that goes down one of the roads, and I first I found out about it because it was door dashing. It was it's a very popular area. It's easy. The boundaries are pretty small, so I don't end up going out of area too much. But it's also when on that main road is where my DM works. Very public location. But what's funny is one of the reasons that I like driving this road, and especially if like I've DoorDash down in the southern area, and then I get to drive north back up to where we're staying, like there are a bunch of billboards, like not an excessive amount, but there are a bunch, and I've noticed that Spirit will put things on them that are like messages, right? Like synchronicities of it, and they change them often enough that like over time it started to become obvious when it was just a random thing put on the billboard versus like a wink from Spirit being like, "This is for you, kid," and now there's all these signs of like some of them are like when all you want is everything. It's like a casino billboard thing, but it's got like shoes and food and cars and like different things on it. It's really interesting, and there's a couple of them and they all have different things, and I love that it's like what every having everything for each person is kind of a different thing, don't you think? And and then others will have things like, what is it? You've won $1 million, and like it'll be either another casino thing or be another one. But for a long time, they didn't have like they were all medical. And there was other times that it was about child hunger and things like that. And like it's funny to me that like right after I start talking and like really talking more in my videos about like how I'm imagining it coming in and talking about it and like talking about the bits and pieces as they flow in even before like say the money does or the rest of the stuff does, like then that stuff happens, and then the billboards change. And then when I walk in places there's that, or and then like been a ton of horoscopes from different people I've never known and all that, like especially in Capricorn, talking about $1 million coming in. You know what I mean? And some sort of like a couple of them have said like it's my power of belief, right? And I'm like, ooh, okay, yeah. I mean, look at what I've done. If I can accept that I am that powerful to believe in it, that people like that and that sort of manifests, maybe I figure out how to teach other people how to do that. Or maybe I inspire people enough that they just want to be around me enough to get that energy themselves and then change their lives. I don't know. But it brings me into that power dynamic with myself and with the rest of the world and things like that. And then it reminds me of a TED talk that Lizzo did, and I loved it because it was like, what kind of rich bitch do I want to be, right? Which reminds me of these Capri Suns. Because then I think about like today I was driving around and like I needed to go get gas. And I just had a little bit of money come in from my writing. I was writing that most of it I did 10 years ago, but then like over time I've done little bits more here and there. It's not a ton, but it's reliably there. And I was thinking about it like looking at my gas tank and looking at the gas station I was going to pull into. And I was like, if I was a millionaire right now, what would I be doing differently than what I'm doing right now? And I was thinking like I'd probably still go for long drives because I like long drives. But my gas tank would always be full, right? I would always keep it like I would only take it to like halfway, like the halfway mark, and then I would fill it up, which has been a goal of mine anyways, like to just assume the gas tank is empty at a half a tank, because then like if I have a day where I don't have a lot of money growing in my pockets like I usually do now, it's smaller amounts, so it goes, but it's continuing to grow in there. I like that. I like that this is working. But the like if I have any days where there's some spaces or some old momentum or anything, if I still got half a tank of gas, I can still get to the next job. You know what I mean? Or I can still get to the next thing. And I was thinking about that in the different contexts. Like if I was a millionaire, like I'd probably still be doing most of the same shit. You know what I mean? The difference would be my gas tank would pretty much always be full. I wouldn't have to, like, I wouldn't need to keep in my head the knowledge that if I go to the gas station at that far end or that far end, I'll get the better deal for the quality of gas and the price on cigarettes that I want. Like, I wouldn't need to plan that stuff out. I would go to the gas station with the best quality gas for the best price. Like, that'd be it. Like, and it's like I thought about what would I be doing the same work, and like probably I really like working with horses, and I like what I'm learning about the horse world. And I mean, horse people seem diverse enough. Like I've been enjoying most of them, and I think the difference is either I would have like a really big RV, or I would have like I would either fix up this nice little car that I have, or have another kind of one that's like a crossover that's just better on gas. Because this one's decent on gas, but it'd be nice for it to be better on gas. But you see what I mean? Like that Mars and Capricorn energy is definitely there, and so is that Venus and Capricorn energy. Like, and especially when they come together, it's like imagine it, manifest it, and like, what would you be doing? And that brings me into the stuff that like Lizzo was talking about. Like one of the places her journey of like stardom and fame started was asking herself that, like, what kind of rich bitch I want to be. And that makes me think about stuff like the stuff going on in Ukraine. Like what kind of, like, let's say that I already have everything. Like let's say it falls in my lap in a benevolent way and it's great. Or like suddenly my YouTube upticks in subscribers and I can do lives and people donate and there's all that. Like I don't even know. Like maybe I find a scratch ticket on the ground that happens to be $1 million winner. I don't know. There are infinite ways that things can come in. But like let's say I have it. Like if I take it from smaller stuff to like What level would I fill up my gas tank? Like empty or half full, you know? Uh, then I take it bigger too. Like if I had enough of a, I want to say a soapbox, a mantle, a speaking point, I had enough money to be powerful enough to have a voice, what would I say and what would I speak about? And it's funny because there is that dynamic of like take action for the good of the individual and the people, and then also like that self-loving, like stay out of it, keep your good vibes where you like them. The world will arrange itself however it arranges itself, and like you know that that it's cycles, things will go through what they go through. There's not a point in like dragging yourself down in vibration to like immerse in this stuff. There are plenty of people who will, but then on that Mars and Capricorn side, especially with Mercury still in Aquarius, it's the energy of like, it's funny, especially Aquarius. Like, America was born in Aquarius time. So, like, it's very like, if you don't speak up for the little guy, what does that say about you? If you don't help defend the little guy, what does that say about you? But at the same time, on the other end, like, you can enable the little guy too. And the little guy will never grow and never get a space to be on of and on its own because a codependent dynamic is developed in there. You know what I mean? And that brings me into my center of like, if I was to talk about more things, if I was to allow myself to be passionate about the new mixture of like politics and spirituality that is like already in my mind and in my heart and stuff, and if I was to open up about like predictions on things coming and stuff like that, like if I was that mouthpiece for some, I don't know, idea, set of consciousness, like how much of that would be, see, this is where the everything's, it's like the swirls come in and it's like there's so many different timelines. Like it could go really well. It could create like a cool ripple effect in the waters of consciousness, and people might realize, oh hey, if we evolve our consciousness and our thinking, we can help affect the outcome of this, and it'll go much better, much like it did with us when y'all helped us with your, like, a lot of you did not have money or any resources to send, but you sent positive thoughts, didn't you? Right? I'm your living example that it works. So like that can work on wider ends, and that gets into like the 5D battles going on, right? Which a lot of people have said that like part of the twin flame journey is that spiritual battle, and it's not, it is one of power dynamics, but it's not one where one is meant to take all. It's where all are supposed to be able to exist, like preferably peacefully and intermingly, though we are humans and we do like a little bit of contrast, but we can maybe evolve the way that we have our contrast. I don't know. I think I'm probably going to end this in here soon. This is day 13 of the 30 days. Mars and Venus conjoined in Capricorn. And I definitely find myself in a space of like what would I say or do about this? What kind of person would I be? Like when, I say when, I'm a millionaire or billionaire, what will I speak about? What will I hold my tongue about? What will I support? Maybe you're on a similar wavelength. If you are, comment below. But until then, I'm getting off of here because there's work to do.